Hey everyone, Warwick's here. So patch 9.2 is here. We're well into it now. The Race to World First is over, and so we're going to continue on with updated guides for 9.2. This time we're doing Windwalker Monk, of course, the last of the monk specs we have yet to cover. So Windwalker, this expansion so far, I think has surprised many people with just finding how strong it is in its niche, particularly at the start of the expansion when a lot of people kind of wrote Windwalker off because of its performance in BFA as one of the worst specs in the game during BFA's time window. But in Castle Nathria in particular, I think when people really started to realize how good Windwalker Monk could be when you had Trail of Liquid Guild taking it into a fight like Stone Legion Generals and just absolutely, stomping down on the meters and doing, very, very well for himself overall. I think as a result of that, you saw Windwalkers kind of starting to pop up all over the place, particularly in NDI settings. They've been strong in PvP settings for quite a while now. So you're continuing to see kind of that growth and that movement in the Windwalker Monk overall itself. Now, as the expansion has gone on, that niche of strong AoE damage hasn't changed. In 9.2, double legendaries do bring some potential variety to the spec, but only in very specific ways. And so in this video, what we're going to do is talk about all of that. We're going to talk about the talents, the covenants, the soulbinds, the legendaries, the conduits, the tier set, stats, consumables, and we'll even discuss the rotation since Windwalker does have a little bit of a in-depth rotation compared to a lot of other specs. So let's not spend too much time on this. We're going to go ahead and start right in on the talent build. So the talent build itself hasn't really changed. You're still getting your same options that you have had in rows before. Eye of the Tiger does work okay in single target versus Chi Burst, which is the best for AoE. You can safely slot Chi Burst in for both situations though, and it's going to be just fine. It's not a big loss of DPS. 25 row, Chi Torpedo or Tiger's Lust. Pick whichever one you want. Diffuse Magic, Dampen Harm. Pick whatever you want. Ring of Peace tends to work best in Mythic Plus situations. Good Karma does work in raid situations because you generally don't need a ton of mob control. You generally need burst, and so Good Karma will allow you to take damage and then also, redirect it to heal yourself as well. So it's just a strong mixed touch of Karma, a strong both defensive but offensive cooldown as well. The only row that I really want to highlight is the 30 row, where all three talents actually have some use. Ascension is definitely a much more passive setup, giving you that extra chi, that extra energy, and the energy regeneration. So this is good if you are limited on your keybinds for whatever reason. This talent just gives you a little bit more wiggle room with your resources. Fist of the White Tiger, definitely the best talent for single target, but I also use it in AoE situations just because I'm very comfortable with it. And Energizing Elixir, the best for AoE situations, giving you that 2 chi and that 75 energy over your 5 seconds. Beyond that, Dance of Chi-Ji still reigns supreme in the 45 row, and Whirling Dragon Punch still has been the only pick in this row for, coming on, I think, the third expansion now. So overall, the talent build hasn't changed. You get some variety in the middle rows depending on situation or need, but talents itself haven't really changed much, so there's not much to really discuss here. As far as covenant options go, you can see right now I am Kirian. That is definitely one of the top choices, particularly in more single target situations, with Necrolord still being the best for AoE situations. Necrolord does give Bone Dust Brew, which gives you that chi cost reduction on your spinning crane kick, and then when combined with its tuning effect with Bone Dust Bountiful Brew, gives you high uptime on the debuff itself. So Necrolord gives you a strong, consistent damage profile, with high burst AoE potential through Spinning Crane Kick and Dance of Chi-Ji. Bone Dust Brew did take a nerf to no longer crit, but got a 5% damage buff to compensate. Overall, this is still a net nerf to Windwalkers, but I think a lot of people expected that to come soon. And Necrolord still remains sort of the strongest general covenant choice amongst the four. Kirian is good for single target situations as Weapons of Order brings a strong mastery burst, which can be available often through Mechanicos' Soulbind. The rotation does change a lot during Weapons of Order, so that is something that we'll talk about in a little bit and kind of give you an idea of what that looks like. And then Night Fae and Venthyr simply fall too far behind for them to be competitively viable. So if you're playing these, it's because you just really like them, or in the case of like Venthyr, you might be building it up for like a potential Mistweaver off spec, but otherwise I don't think you should be playing these in pretty much any situation. Alright, so let's talk about Legendaries. Legendaries changed? 0. Absolutely none. Invoker's Delight still remains the best one overall for Windwalker Monks. There's no Windwalker or generic Monk Legendary that kind of tops Invokers. You know, you're getting that essentially a Bloodlust when you're summoning your Celestial. You know, and as you'll see in the stats, it's like, well, haste isn't a great stat for us. Why do we get a legendary that gives us 33% haste when haste isn't great? Because the sheer stat value of 33% haste overcomes anything else that any other legendary offers for Windwalker, so it's still going to be your best option. And then of course you have Cinch of Unity for your second legendary. On the Cloak for Invoker's Delight, still the best place. You can't craft it into your helm slot after you get 4-piece. This is especially true if the helm slot is one of your open 4-slot pieces. For Cinch of Unity, you can craft it into the highest stat budget item left. Boots are going to be a very popular one. Rings are also become very popular as a choice to put them in for. You can't upgrade this one that you get from the Zereth Mortis questline, the campaign. So you do have to eventually recraft this thing, but at least for now, until you can get the money to do so, in the belt slot, it's perfectly fine. For the Unity side, Bountiful Brew is the Necrolord Covenant one. And basically what happens is that you have a chance to proc like a free Bone Dust Brew. Now, if Bone Dust Brew is already on your targets, then you will get a refresh of the duration on this, which is a great quality of life change that made Necrolord kind of stay in its top position for Windwalkers. Otherwise, it would probably see a significant drop off. And then Call to Arms, of course, you can see when you use Weapons of Order, you call forth Juen for 12 seconds. So it allows you to desync your cooldowns if you'd like for longer Juen uptime, or you can pop both Juen and Cinch of Unity, Call to Arms and Weapons of Order at the same time and get even higher burst capabilities. But I generally recommend to extend it out if the fight's going to be a longer duration, particularly in raid settings, where you can just get that longer sort of sustained high damage window through Juen. So both of these I think are going to be pretty good. Go from there. Now the one thing to take note of is that this Juen in Call to Arms does not proc Invoker's Delight, which is something that we theorized when we first saw these two legendaries potentially being in tandem with each other, but after some testing on PTL, we realized that it does not provide that haste boost. So a little sad, but I think probably the right call in the long run. So just be something to be mindful of. Now let's talk about the tier bonuses. So the tier bonuses for Windwalker Monk are strong, but not inspired. So the 2-piece is that your Fist of Fury damage is increased by 40%. This helps prop up Fist of Fury, which is a spell that has fallen further and further out of favor with Windwalker Monks because it doesn't really do anything except channel damage. And in some cases, you don't even full channel it. You just activate it to basically activate Whirling Dragon Punch and then go from there. On your 4-piece, after 10 offensive abilities, your next 3 offensive abilities deal an additional 22% damage. Again, a good bonus. You can just fire and forget that bonus. However, you can also track it if you'd like and try to maximize the final 3, or those 3 like even more juiced up offensive abilities. So you can make sure you're using it into like a Rising Sun kick or a Dance of Chi-Ji Spinning Crane kick or a Whirling Dragon Punch or something along those lines. So you can gamify it a little bit, but I think for the most part, both of those talents are just very passive. And so it's not impactful to gameplay at all. It just takes the things that you have and makes them better. So it's just, it's a little bit disappointing that you're not getting any sort of gameplay change out of your Windwalker tier bonuses, but the one thing I've noticed with Monk class in particular is that pretty much all the set bonuses are very, passive. And so there's nothing that drastically impacts your gameplay. It just takes what you're strong at, or like in the case of Brewmaster, the 4-piece takes a weakness of the Monk spec, and of the Brewmaster Monk spec, and kind of covers it up a little bit. But for Windwalker, it doesn't give us a big single target increase. It doesn't give us a massive AoE increase. It just gives us, generally speaking, more damage, which, you shouldn't say no to, but it's rather uninspired feeling overall. Alright, let's talk about Soulbinds and Conduits. So we'll start with Kirian, because that's what I am already. Forge Light Prime Mechanicos is your best option here. You get a combination of Brawn, you get Hammer of Genesis from Mythic Plus situations, Then you also get Soul Glow Spectrometer, giving you basically an additional 3% damage. And then you also get Effusive Anima Accelerator, which does damage and then also reduces the cooldown of Weapons of Order, which means higher duet uptime. Overall, this is just one of the best offensive Soulbinds period in the game, and one that you should basically be going for. It's also useful for Brewmaster Monk, because you can see I have Brewmaster Conduits in there, but if I were to play Windwalker, I'd switch them up. Alright, so let's close these and let me go into Soulbind Calculator. And for Necrolord, you want to use Bonesmith and Mirror. Forgeborn Reverie is giving you 3% extra agility just for having items enchanted, which if you're doing them the right way, you will have them enchanted no matter what. Other options in this row, you have Marrow Gemstone, giving you big crit chance. You can also run Gore Stompers, where you get a little bit of movement when you are, dealing low health damage to low health enemies. I like Marrow Gemstone personally, so that's my run. So I run basically a double potency, triple endurance conduit setup with this. So it makes you kind of very tanky overall. And then of course you get Carver's Eye, where you get extra damage at 90% above for extra mastery. And then Mnemonic Equipment basically gives you the damage at below 35%. So it just allows you to have strong overall healing. Plague Demiser Megalith can go there in like a Mythic Plus, even a many in Mythic Plus, because you can also run those. But generally speaking, Bonesmith and Mirror is just going to be your best overall choice. For Night Fae, it is Nia, with Grove Invigoration, giving you a chance of that extra mastery. And then you come down here, you have both Burrs and Poison. Burrs for Raid, Poison for Mythic Plus. That give you strong damage components out of it. And then you can either do Survivor's Rally or, called Shot, but not really. Survivor's Rally gives you a little bit of defensive component. And then Bonded Hearts basically gives you a little bit of group support and also maximum health as well. And finally, if you are one of the 3 Venthyr Windwalker monks, you want to use Theotar. Basically, it all revolves around party favors, drinking the Mad Duke's tea. However, you have things like It's Always Tea Time, giving you some sustain, Wasteland Proprietary, and Token of Appreciation. Both very good. Token Appreciation allows you to give shields to your healers, helping them survive. Wasteland Proprietary is extra versatility when you are doing Fallen Order. And then of course at the top, Soothing Shade, giving you a big mastery bonus, 550 mastery if you can stand inside the shade. So those are your Soulbinds. For Conduits, they're going to vary a little bit depending on what your goal is. So for single target situations, you're going to want to look at something like Coordinated Offensive. So when Storm, Earth, and Fire Spirits fixate the same target, they deal additional damage. You also want to look at running your Covenant Conduit if you're not Night Fae. Night Fae don't need to worry about it, but for the other 3 specs, you want to use it. So Strike with Clarity, Imbued Reflections, Bone Marrow Hops, all of those are very good. And then for your 3rd potency slot, you can actually use any of the other 3 here. Inner Fury just to boost your Fist of Fury damage even more. Juen gives you a little bit more CDR on your Invoke, Juen, and gives it more damage. And if you're talented into Dance of Chi-Ji, then getting Calculated Strikes is going to be a good option, because even in single target, your mark's going to have Mark of the Crane, and so you get an 18 additional % damage on top of the 150 or the 200% damage, I think it is now. 200% damage that you're getting on the Dance of Chi-Ji proc, so you're talking, almost 220% extra damage on top of what the spec does originally, so makes it a very strong single target conduit. If you don't run Dance of Chi-Ji, then Inner Fury or Juen's Bond are going to be your best options. Now for AoE situations, it's a little bit reversed. Calculated Strikes becomes your top conduit choice, followed by your Covenant one, if you're not Night Fae. And then for your 3rd one, you have some choices. I think Inner Fury is pretty good, giving you Fist of Fury damage, because Fist of Fury does naturally cleave. Coordinated Offensive can work for giving you that little bit of flexibility to do really good in trash, but also gives you some extra damage on bosses. In Mythic Plus, Juen's Bond, also pretty decent option. So again, Calculated Strikes, Potency Conduit for your Covenant, except for Night Fae, and then you can pick any of the other 3 left, and I think you're going to be okay. Like I said, I'd probably run a Calculated Strike with Clarity, Coordinated Offensive setup, but I've thought about running Calculated Strike with Clarity, and Inner Fury, just to see how that feels and kind of sims for me. You can sim it and see which one's going to be the best for you, but choice is yours. These are not huge differences in your DPS, so if you like the way another one feels, you can choose that instead. All right, let's talk about stats. So number one for stats for DPS specs is that simming is always going to be your best answer. You go to raidbots.com using the Simulation Craft add-on. If you don't know how to use raid bots, I definitely recommend how to use raid bots on youtube.com. You'll find a ton of different videos that are out there that teach you how to use raid bots. Marcellian Online put out a pretty good one that I would recommend. So shout outs to those guys for doing that video. They do a good job of kind of helping explain it for beginners. And then if you want to get more and more in depth with it, then I'm sure there's videos out there for that. Anyways though, if you're looking for just a general guide, then you're looking at agility, so eye level kind of trumps everything. So quick example, I have these 249 legs here. Let's say I get a 278 leg slot out of my vault. Let's say it's 278 tier legs, not even tier, let's just say it's like, let's just say I get these disharmony breaches in 278. So that's a 29 eye level upgrade. It doesn't matter what a sim, I don't need to sim for that because I know that at 29 eye levels higher, this is going to be beneficial. And so in cases like that, you just want to look at eye level. But in cases where, say, like I have this 272 shoulders and I get a 278 shoulders that has different stats, I could then sim it and see what I would get out of it. But for a general guide, you want to look at versatility being your top stat, crit and mastery being of roughly equal, with haste being at the bottom. The reason that haste is at the bottom, like I said earlier, is that, we run a haste Lego. Why is haste at the bottom? Partly it's mostly revolve around the fact that Windwalker has a locked 1 second GCD. Can't go lower than 1 second, doesn't go any higher than 1 second. All energy classes are based this way, so rogues and feral druids are this way as well. And so it's something to consider. The other thing is that haste really only at that point makes things like Rising Sun Kick's cooldown a little bit shorter, but with Blackout Kick reducing the cooldown of Rising Sun Kick and Fist of Fury anyways, you're not going to gain that much out of having high haste to get that big cooldown reduction. So haste is just not a super valuable stat. Like I said, the only reason we're using Invokers is because 33% haste is something like 2,000 of a stat. It's just a huge boost. Like right now I have 338 haste. Popping Juan, let's just do that real quick. See, it jumps me from 10% to 47%. It's just a huge number that that just allows the spec to really have strong burst windows. Alright, for consumables, when you do enchant this cloak, but basically you can choose any cloak enchant that you want. You can do leech, you can do avoid it, you can do speed, you can do 30 stamina. All of them are viable choices. Pick whichever one you feel the best with. 30 stats on chest, as I have here. 15 agility on boots. And then for your ring slots, you have two choices. If you're looking for just something safe to always pick, versatility is the answer for that. If you are looking to min-max your damage, then you want to sim. There might be some cases for some folks where crit or mastery might end up being better for your ring enchants. The same goes for your gems. You can safely pick versatility in all situations and be just fine. Or you can go with a sim and see if crit or mastery ends up being more for you. As far as your food goes, versatility food, steak a la mode, is going to be your best choice. For your weapons, you want to do your sharpening or weight stones, depending on what weapon you have. Of course, I have both because I have a mace and a sword. For your weapon enchants, Sinful Revelation for single target, Lightless Force for AoE on your main hand, with Celestial Guidance as your offhand. If you're using a two-handed staff, you want to use Celestial Guidance as your main enchant of choice. Now, let's talk about that real quick for dual wield versus two-hander. Which one do you use? Typically, dual wield is going to end up giving you more because of the double enchants. However, there's been some very recent math that has come out to where as eye level continues to get higher, the two-handed staves are actually potentially coming out further ahead with just Celestial Guidance because of the just sheer amount of stats on a two-hander versus generally a two one-handers. So you have to sim it to find out which is going to be exactly the best for you. At kind of the eye level that I'm at right now, two-handed staffs are about 1 to 2% behind in damage versus dual wielding, so not much of a difference. So anytime I get weapons, I just sim them and see which one ends up being better, and then we go from there. For your alchemical needs, Spectral Flask of Power, of course, Potion of Agility is your DPS pot. And then you want to use, let's see, Sharpening Weight Stones. You can use the oils as well, if you'd like. And then finally, your Heavy Desolate Armor Kits, just to give you more stamina, more health, more room to play with, a little bit more room for error when it comes to your own health pool, so go from there. Alright, now let's talk rotation. So I'm going to do this based off of a generic opener, and then when we throw in things like the Covenant Legendaries. Alright, now this is complicated, so I'm going to take it slow. I'm going to overcap resources. I'm not going to maximize the play. What I'm focused on is giving you the order of which abilities generally should be used, so that you can focus on just practicing those and then going from there. Some of it is that you do have to react to different things like free blackout kick procs and what spells and abilities you have available, so that you can maximize it as best you can. But generally speaking, you want to try and do something where you would expel harm, which you will be using often. So you go in, expel harm, like about right as your pull timer starts. And then with about 3 seconds left on your pull timer, you want to go ahead and start Chi Burst, so you can get that Chi in. You can see I got 2 Chi here. In that case, you would Tiger Palm, Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, Fist of Fury. You full channel it here. Whirling Dragon Punch, Fist of the White Tiger to get back to 5, and then you can see there, and then you just use Blackout Kick as a filler. I have not gotten Chi G proc yet, so you know, I'd maybe use it there just because I don't have anything else going on. And then you fill it back in, and as you can see, you just kind of work it out from there, using things like Rising Sun Kick, Fist of Fury, Whirling Dragon Punch on cooldown. Now, where does your Covenant ability go? In this case, let's go to, let's see, is there a single target anywhere? Let's go to the Dungeoneer's Training Dummy. So you have a single target. So you expel harm, Chi Burst, walk in, then you Tiger Palm, or actually you should have Fist of the White Tiger there, but we'll do that. Fist of the White Tiger, and then Chi Burst. So what you would do though with this is that your cooldowns would come basically before you start hitting any abilities. So as you come in, let's wait for cooldowns real quick. So again, you're gonna use this pretty high, you know, usually about 15 seconds if you can, if you do a longer pull timer. I know a lot of groups only do 10, so you just would try to use it before then. Alright, so we're coming in, we're gonna Chi Burst, and then right here you expel harm again, and then you pop your cooldowns. So here comes that, and here comes Storm, Earth, and Fire. We're gonna focus them here, and then we're gonna go in, you know, hello, Fist of Fury. I was out of range. Sorry, targeting the wrong one. There we go. But anyways, that's the kind of general point. That's where you pop your cooldowns. Now, if you're Kirian, you pop Juen, and then you wait for this to go away whenever he gets done with his thing. And once he goes away, like right there, you would pop Weapons of Order to get more Juen uptime. So that's where you're going to want to use those cooldowns in order to kind of maximize the cooldowns themselves. Now, if you are going in pure single target, is just cooldowns on cooldown, with Touch of Death being the top priority once it's become available. And then you want to use Expel Harm, Fist of the White Tiger, and Tiger Palm in that priority order to build the 4 to 5 Chi, with Rising Sun Kick as your primary Chi spender, Fist of Fury is your second primary one, so that you can, and then Whirling Dragon Punch anytime that you have that active. You know, when it's on off cooldown and you have both your spenders down, use Whirling Dragon Punch. And then you just use some of your other stuff that's on lesser cooldown. So, like I said, Whirling Dragon Punch, Chi Burst, let's see, Spinning Crane Kick. Basically use those as complete and utter fillers and on cooldown for in the case of Chi Burst and Whirling Dragon Punch. In AoE situations, you just move Spinning Crane Kick up the priority. So in AoE situations, as we come over here, what you're going to want to do is as you pop your cranes, you can see they all have this Mark of the Crane ability. You're going to be able to do that so you can get higher uptime on your Mark of the Crane, and so that you can get bigger spinning crane kicks essentially. So you do want to kind of spread the debuff around. As you can see, clones will do it for you, but if you don't have clones up, then you're going to need to like tab target around, get get 3 or 4 guys with Blackout Kick or Rising Sun Kick or Tiger Palm, and then after that drop your spinning crane kick so you maximize the damage of setting up your spinning crane kick and getting the most out of it. Now let's talk about Kirian, because I mentioned this a couple times. So in situations where you are Kirian, and what I'll do is I'll link a video from Babylonius, who's one of the top monk theory crafters in the world. I'll link a video that he did in the description that goes into more depth with this. But basically, because of the way that you get your chi reduction costs when using weapons of order, as you can see here on this tooltip, once it decides to come up, let me just do it this way. So basically you get additional mastery, and then when you use Rising Sun Kick, it reduced chi cost by 1 for 5 seconds, an additional cooldown reduction on Blackout Kick. So what you want to do is that because you get that additional CDR, but it only lasts 5 seconds, you basically, if you're channeling Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick's about to be available, and you have the chi, you just cut off Fist of Fury, usually even after 1 global. The reason for that is that the Fist of Fury clone, the clones casts will still go through in full. So like I said, I'll link the video below if you want to get more details about it, but basically while you have Weapons of Order active, you only press Fist of Fury to basically activate Whirling Dragon Punch, and you cut it off as soon as you can, usually within the next global. So you're only getting about a third of the normal channel that Fist of Fury does provide, because it's a 3-second channel normally, you're only getting 1 second out of it. Alright, overall, Windwalkers I think have died off a little bit. We're already seeing a drop off in total players playing the spec right now, which is to be expected because other specs have risen up to be quite powerful. Frosty K's, Rogues are back in the raid meta, as well as Warriors becoming very popular in the raid meta, and Enhancement Shaman. All of those specs have kind of overtaken Windwalker as the flavor of the month in terms of melee specs, so you're seeing the participation in the Windwalker play pool drop off. But I don't think that means that the spec is dead, or that it's busted, or that it's, you know, damaged beyond repair. All I think it really means is that other specs have risen up, and that Windwalker is becoming underrated again. Now, if you are a Windwalker monk looking to try and work your way into a raid or into a Mythic Plus setting, as long as you continue to practice the spec, you're going to find yourself in a great position to be, you know, very productive for your raid or Mythic Plus team. You bring, of course, Mystic Touch, which is always useful, especially if you're the only monk in the raid. But you're not going to gimp yourself or or the people you're playing with by playing Windwalker versus, say, a Brewmaster monk or a Mistweaver monk, both specs of which are also very strong in this tier. Overall, like I said, I think it's undervalued, and if you really enjoy the spec, I think you're going to be a contributor to your raids. Hopefully a little bit more now that you've watched this video. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you very much for sticking it out with me on this video. I know it was a little bit of a longer one, but the rotation section demanded that I do a little bit more in-depth discussion about it. As far as class guides going, next moving forward, I'm going to go ahead and do DK guides. So I'll work on Blood, Frosted, Unholy here in the next probably the few days. And then also was asked on stream if I would do a Feral Druid guide, so I will do a Feral Druid guide as well. And then we'll kind of see after that, we'll see what I'm feeling, see what's going on in the news. We are about 3 weeks out from the expansion being revealed, next expansion being revealed, so I'm sure we'll be talking about that. And depending on what's going on, I'll be streaming that. So you can join me on stream here on Twitch or on YouTube to do the expansion reveal, get my reactions in real time. So until the next video, all, I hope you're all staying safe, and I will see you all in the next video.